Hello, magic makers, and welcome back to the Metaphysical Apothecary. We are your hosts, Megan and Shannon. We are also known as the Scorpio Sisters, and we are here to explore the mysterious, magical, and the arcane.
Really good way to use these kinds of energies is to just sit down and consult with them in the same way you would with any other spirit guide. You sit down and consult with Scar about, why are you like this? Just literally asking, why are you like this? And listen to the answer, because essentially the answer does come from inside of us, right? When you're listening to the answer, examine how you relate to that answer. So Scar became the way that he was because he was bullied and ridiculed and ostracized, not accepted by his people for whatever reason. And the only friends that he could even barely call friends were people who were not on his intellectual level. They already had their own social structure. He kind of had to bully his way in, and then to get any clout with them whatsoever, he had to constantly fight and be intimidating and rule and lord over him. He didn't have anyone who was his equal and liked him just for the person that he was.
With Kimberly, I think you could probably have a sit-down conversation with her, or I could have a sit-down conversation with her as a spirit guide, in a sense, and come to understand part of the reason why I find her so annoying is probably because it's the social standard. And was still trapped in that, even though she was given the powers as everyone else was of a Power Ranger, she was still stuck in the social standards of what it meant to be a girl. And what that meant you had to act like, and what your life experiences were expected to be. Even as you can sit down and look at Scar and Scar's life and pull that apart, you can look at Pink Power Ranger Kimberly and pull apart social standards and expectancies of a girl, even if that girl has the same power or opportunities as others.
In a conversation with someone like Kimberly too, where that character hasn't necessarily been treated the way that they should be, even if there are supposed to be a hero or a positive character, you can listen to their frustrations as well, their problems, the way that they've been characterized. Because Kimberly, if you look at her character, is an amazing young woman. She's kind, she's generous, she teaches aerobics classes, but she's not allowed to be on the same level as some of the other characters because she's just the girl next door.
And she's the pretty one.
Quote unquote,
Whether or not you find her features to be quote-unquote pretty, she was stereotyped as the pretty one.
Right.
Which is also something to be aware of on an anti-pantheon. If something is too stereotyped, it might be something to look at in an anti-pantheon way.
Especially if you gravitate towards something that could be amazing, but it also repels you. It would be interesting to examine the energy that you want to get from it versus the energy it's giving off. And I think that's why a lot of us write fan fiction.
Or role play. You go to MRPG sites or games or things like that, and you role play for a similar reason.
I feel like it's also the reason why directors will reinterpret and reimagine classic literature and classic theater. For instance, like how Baz Luhrmann reimagined Romeo and Juliet to be a modern story and gave characters, especially the female characters in that story, a lot more agency. He also created a diverse cast, maybe not as diverse as it should have been, but a diverse cast, gave characters like Mercutio, who is gay-coded in the original play, full agency over their sexuality. So essentially, this was someone who looked at something that was problematic and they went, the characters are better than this. The material is better than this. I'm going to explore how it could be. We were talking about Power Rangers, the film that was made just a few years ago. I feel in a lot of ways did expand and elevate those characters.
Yeah, I love the story of Rita, the original Green Power Ranger, in that movie. In the series, you don't have enough information about Rita to really get a sense of who she is or why she is or what she does.
Right.
And in the movie, there is an understanding of what she's doing and why she's doing it and how she's even able to do it, how she's able to fight continuously because she's a Power Ranger herself.
Yep. Another fandom, I think a lot of the women in my life have explored in terms of their own internalized misogyny. I'm including myself in this. I'm not picking on anybody. I'm including myself in this for sure. But it's in classic literature written by women, such as Jane Austen. I'm a huge Jane Austen fan.
Yep.
Definitely feel like there's a Jane Austen fandom, and I'm a huge fan of hers. Number one, she's very cheeky with her audience. She's very tongue-in-cheek, gives you a lot of dry humor, and is really playful with the way that she characterizes her people. Number two, her books do not pass the reverse Bechdel test. There is never a scene in the books that does not have a woman in it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of women who say they don't like Jane Austen. And I have to admit, in high school, I was one of these women. The thing that I realized in college and then later on about Jane Austen and her writing is she writes very clearly and very plainly about women in her time period. These were based on people that she knew. They were based on situations that she had encountered and that the people around her had encountered. And she was just creating characters that were as real as she could possibly make them and telling people about what it was like to be a woman in the Regency era. That's all she was doing, and she did it with a very deft hand. So learning to love Jane Austen was essentially learning to love myself as a woman, because we're taught not to love anything feminine. That's where the not like other girls trope comes from. So that was a huge piece of shadow work for me.
Anti-pantheons with historical figures.
Exactly.
And my anti-pantheon historical figure that I don't enjoy in any way, shape, or form is Mary Shelley.
Really? That's shocking. She was the original goth. She invented being goth.
I do not enjoy her work.
Okay.
So I try to give her accolades and credit where credit is due. She's one of the first horror science fiction writers publishing a work as a woman during a time period where women really weren't being published. Her monster has done well in Hollywood and on television. Classic monster. Love him to death. I can't say that I enjoy the actual work that he comes from. I can't say that I enjoy Frankenstein. I find her writing to be unedited. There was a need for someone to come in and edit it from here to Timbuktu and back again. Mary Shelley is definitely someone who's on my anti-pantheon. I see and understand what she did for the genre, what she did for women authors in general. Just don't like her piece.
So what do you feel like you need to look at there?
Well, there's a little bit of jealousy, obviously, as a creator and a writer and a painter having a piece of work out there that I feel could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it was so popular and is still so popular to the point where we still have Frankenstein monsters on Halloween night.
Right.
But there is a little bit of jealousy there. Part of the reason why she's on the anti-pantheon is that here's this woman who did something great, and I'm happy she did something great, but her piece could have been better. So there's that, but then there's also the whole procedure in which she got Frankenstein published under. The fact that it was a story that she and her husband and their friend Lord Byron were telling each other over a winter holiday, and no one went in and said, this is a great story, which it is, let's edit this so that way it can be even better.
Right.
So that bothers me as well, the fact that it's raw, and the fact that she still had to use her husband's name in order to get it published is still a little annoying.
Yep.
Understandable because of history and what was happening at that period of time. And while she wrote other pieces after Frankenstein, none of them did well because they were, again, unedited. So no one was there to help her to edit this stuff out that didn't need to be there. And it was under her own name.
Mm-hmm. Even if you're ready to acknowledge that a particular archetype, a particular character, a particular historical figure is on your anti-pantheon, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are ready to shadow work with them. It doesn't necessarily mean you're ready to examine that relationship. So it's not something that we can or should force to happen, especially when you're doing shadow work. If that's the reason that you are working with your anti-pantheon figures is to perform shadow work, it's important that you're coming at that from a perspective of self-love, compassion, and empathy, both for yourself and for the character that you're sitting down with. If you're coming at this from a perspective of self-loathing or trying to punish yourself or even just bashing the character or picking apart all the things that you don't like about them, which can be damaging to your own energy if you're working with them as part of your anti-pantheon, that's not healthy. We're not doing this to commit spiritual self-harm. That's not what it's for. Just set it aside and wait until you are ready. Wait until you're in a space where you have some compassion for yourself and for the character that you're about to sit down with.
And I'm not there for Mary Shelley.
And that's okay.
One of the ways that Legends of Zelda could also be used in an anti-pantheon, especially with the Twilight Princess game, the princess herself, or you have Link's shadow form, which is a shadow wolf, who can guide you through the shadow scape of your own Shadowland.
Okay.
Going through and being a guide for you to go through the different parts of your shadow that you need to interact with at that point in time, which means you can bypass ones that are most to go deeper in.
Okay.
But yeah, Legends of Zelda can also work on an anti-pantheon, and you could use the Twilight Princess, who is the rightful ruler of the Shadowland in Twilight Princess, as well as Link's form that he takes after first exposed to the spreading shadow in his own land. Either or both of them at the same time would allow you to traverse into the shadow aspect of yourself you might find harder to access or harder to get to for whatever reason if you use them as your guides to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can even bring together pairs of characters from the same fandom, perhaps with the Pink Ranger and the Green Ranger, or a different Power Ranger that you do identify with. Sit down and talk to them together, because they're friends. For the most part, they at least know each other a little.
I think it's important to remember that a lot of archetypal energy, when you're using it for yourself in your magic, is whether or not you're choosing a protagonist or a villain, like a Disney villain, Maleficent, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're using the Maleficent archetype, every single archetype has their own perspective and is the hero of their own life. To paraphrase Loki from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or rather his actor, he sees himself as the hero of the story. And almost every single villain sees themselves as the hero of their own story. All right, I think that's all we have for today on Pop Pantheons, Anti-Pantheons. I hope that it sparked some inspiration for you to dive deeper into your own fandoms or find new ones and start interacting with these characters and these historical figures to incorporate them into your magical practice.
We hope you'll join us again. In the meantime, you can follow us on our blog for some more witchy wisdom, as well as check out some of our original art on Society 6 for sacred decor and more. Thank you for joining us, and go make some magic and live your best life. Bye.
Bye, everyone.